You did an entire video on on the Julio Jones rumors to the 49ers. And I would like to preface this with saying there has been not a single report saying the 49ers are looking into Julio Jones. The 49ers have made calls about Julio Jones, but they've been connected with Julio Jones quite a bit, probably mostly because Kyle Shanahan worked wonders with Julio Jones when he was the Falcons offensive coordinator. So, I mean, other than that, there really hasn't been anything concrete tying him to the 49ers, but do I think the 49ers would inquire and look into it? Yeah, I do. I think
they
would
always do their due diligence.
Right. I think they would definitely be interested. It just depends on what the cost would be. So give me your thoughts on just kind of the general Julio Jones situation and what are some of the things that go through your head when you think about the 49ers doing that?
I think more so than any other name that you've kind of been or heard, being thrown around when it pertains to the kind of 49ers and maybe addressing the receiver position. Like when it comes to him, when it comes to Julio Jones, I feel like he makes the most sense. Like he's the guy that when he comes in right away, he's your wide receiver one. Now, another thing too, I think with Julio Jones, I think a lot of people think like, oh, he's just going to cost a ton from his contract to his, what it would cost to get him, right? Like, you start talking about the draft, pieces and things like that, the assets. Well, how much are people going to really give up for a guy who they really want out, right? Like the Falcons want to get rid of him, right, to clear up cap space. Like that's their main thing, clear up cap space. They just drafted Kyle Pitts, who's kind of like, a tweener and tight end / receiver. You also have, Ridley, who's been playing terrific. So I think they kind of went that way. Okay, let's start to get a little bit younger and let's get some of this money off our books so we can start kind of, reworking this whole roster. And when you look at Julio, 32 years old, or he's about to be 32 years old, he's coming off of a kind of an injury-riddled season where he, missed 7 games. So he had maybe his like lowest production total ever, because right. But he's been so damn productive. But when you start to kind of factor in everything, right, like them kind of wanting him gone to free up space and the age and the injury, I think there's a scenario where you don't have to give up a ton. I think as much as people think, right? Like in your head, it's like Julio Jones, that's going to cost you multiple first-round picks. I don't think that's going to be the case.
No, I don't either.
I think it's going to be closer to like a DeAndre Hopkins type thing where it was a running back and a second-round pick. Now, I'm not saying like that's what it would be exactly, but I'm just saying in the sense of Hopkins. I mean, when Hopkins got traded, he was at the peak of his powers, and he was like so productive, a top 3 receiver without a doubt, and much younger, and still just went for a running back who was injured, right? David Johnson, like he's injured all the time, and the second-round pick. When it comes to those situations and they start kind of figuring out the cap and all that type of stuff, I think there's a scenario where he doesn't go for nearly as much as what people think.
No, I have always kind of been, once people started talking about trading for Julio Jones, and I started seeing people throw around what you're talking about, like the compensation for it, I don't think it's going to take very much at all. And I think if the Falcons are trying to get every other team that's talking about this trade with the Falcons is going to have more leverage than the Falcons. Like, sure, the Falcons have Julio Jones, who inevitably is, the product and one of the greatest receivers to ever do it. He's up there. Julio Jones is special, but he's on the tail end of his career. And I could even see a scenario where Atlanta is like, okay, well, we want a second-round pick. And teams will be like, okay, we'll give you a second-round pick, but you got to pay him $5 million of his salary this year. If the NFL teams, other NFL teams, knowing that this is mostly motivated by Julio Jones' salary, are going to be able to take advantage of that fact. They know that the Falcons are in a rough spot. And so it's not going to be, there could be a bidding war. There could be multiple teams, but the Falcons are just in a bad spot. And the fact that every other team that's inquiring about Julio knows that they're doing it because they just can't afford his salary or don't want to pay it. So I could see there being an instance where teams are asking the Falcons to pay a portion of his salary and then they'll take on the rest, or it just doesn't cost as much as people think. I could see Julio Jones being traded for like a 3rd-round pick, or maybe a 4th and a player, or, maybe I'm undervaluing him, but because it is Julio Jones, but at the same time, I just do not see it costing nearly as much as a lot of people think. And to kind of tie this into the 49ers, and you mentioned this too on some of your other videos in your channel, is I do think Julio Jones would be worth it for the 49ers because it's Julio Jones. He's a premier talent that would instantly, like he's not somebody where you have to give it much thought. Like, yes, he's starting. He's going to be out there every play. Like, he's just out. Like, we'll work it out. Deebo Samuel, he'll be in the slot. We'll run more 3 wide receiver sets. We'll put Deebo Samuel in the backfield if we had to. Julio Jones is going to be out there. He's really one of the only options that people talk about that I could see the 49ers going after just strictly because of how good he is. You know, like, he makes sense. You get way better. Do the 49ers think they're one receiver away from competing for another championship? They could. You know, some things would have to go their way. They'd have to be a lot healthier than they were, obviously, last year. I could see why they would want to make that move. But at the same time, it's not like this, we must trade for Julio Jones type move to me. You know, you're getting a Julio Jones. It's on the last 2-3 years of his career. Maybe the injury things. I mean, you're talking about a guy. Let's go over the last 7 seasons, 15 games, 16 games, 14 games, 16 games, 16 games, 15 games. He's not injury prone, but he just had his first bad injury season. Is that a trend of what's to come, or is it just that one season? You don't really know. Given his age, you probably think it could become a trend. Given his salary, do the 49ers have to trade for Julio Jones? No, not at all. Do I think that they would be dumb not to do it? Nope. Like, if they can pull it off and it doesn't put them in that bad of a spot, we know they can afford it. We know they can afford it. We know the salary cap's going up. So there's reasons to do it and there's reasons not to do it. I really am not in a position where I feel like the 49ers need to make this move or anything like that. I could see why they would choose not to. I could see why they would do it.
Well, why do you think why would you think that they would choose not to?
Just purely for the fact that they probably don't think they might not think they're going to get much out of him. They're like, we're going to be paying this guy $10 to $12 million, $15 million this year, $10 to $12 million the next 2 years. We have 2 wide receivers that we feel like should be on the field all the time. Given the 49ers and how often they run with 2 wide receivers, now they're having to put a guy on the sideline or change their outlook towards a game just for the sake of incorporating Julio Jones. Now, again,
right, like,
it's Julio Jones. You do what you got to do. But at the same time, I could see them being like, look, like, I get it. It's Julio Jones, but I just don't think we need to. There are other ways that we could steer our team to make us better, and that would suck up most of the cap space they have remaining. And we saw how that worked. Like, the 49ers got to a point last year where they literally almost couldn't afford to sign more players. Like, they had so many injuries that they just were running out of, like, they couldn't even, they were almost got backed up against the wall. So I could see them wanting to avoid that. But, it could go both ways for me with Julio Jones. I mean, it just depends. There's so many factors. Like, are they going to be paying his full salary? If they are, how much are they giving up? I could just see the 49ers being in a spot where it just feels too forced. They could be in a position where they're working through the options and they're like, there just isn't enough of a payoff for us to do this.
Right.
It just, and I can understand that. It's not something that's just like, holy shit, how do you not do this? Kind of like the DeAndre Hopkins trade was, if that was somehow presented to the 49ers, I would be like, dude, what do you, like, how do you not do this? Like, you would be.
Would you give up your boy Mostert in a second for
you can't
Hopkins?
Make me say that live on the internet, man. Like, he's gonna see this. I mean, fuck, man. I can't. Yeah, I would. Whatever. I love Raheem. I love you, Raheem.
Yeah.
So
I feel like Hopkins is like 100% a Kyle Shanahan type guy too. Physical, aggressive, just goes out, does his job, works hard. Like, he's consistent. He's always on the field.
I fear God. I fear God, homie. Like, one of the greatest quotes ever, dude.
Right. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, he was at.
So,
he was at
what do you think, man? I don't get, like, you think I would because it's Julio Jones. I just don't get jacked about the possibility of getting him. Like, do I think he'd make the 49ers quite a bit better? Yes. They're also in a weird situation. Like, is Jimmy Garoppolo throwing him the ball? Is Trey Lance throwing him the ball? do the 49ers even want to throw the ball a lot?
So
Because
you're
it to me,
thinking,
it to me seems like they want to run the ball a lot.
yeah. So you're thinking they need to figure out their quarterback situation before they go trading assets for a guy like Julio Jones.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, even that could, that could even be wrong, because no matter who's at quarterback, you're like, we want them to just have a hella good options. Like, I don't give a shit who's back there. Give them the best options, so I
Yeah.
can see that. But at the same time, like, just given the way the draft went, given the way the backfield looks, like, it looks like the 49ers are going to be running the ball like 60% of the time. Like, maybe more. I don't know. If you include Trey Lance and whatever runs he gives you, it could be more. I don't know. It's just maybe he doesn't fit in. Somebody like
I can easily see a 55-45 split in favor of runs.
Yeah. So, it could go either way for me. I'm not hella passionate about it. It's not something I think the 49ers should do. But if they did it, I'd be like, okay. Like, it's Julio Jones.